You know, I still can't quite wrap my head around it. One minute I'm sitting there, enjoying what I thought was going to be a lovely family dinner, and the next my daughter, my own flesh and blood, hands me an envelope and calmly says, "I have a surprise for you." A surprise indeed. Inside that envelope wasn't a sweet card or a thoughtful gift. It was a bill, a debt, a crushing, impossible sum of $400 zeros, euro zero, all in my name, and she expected me to pay it. Was I wrong for the way I reacted? Was I wrong for cutting ties with the person I raised, the person I loved more than anything in this world, after something so utterly, unbelievably cruel? Tell me honestly if you would have done the same thing. It all started, as most of these stories do, quite innocently. I'm a single father, a widower actually. My wife, Sarah, passed away when our daughter, Emily, was just 10 years old. It was a devastating time, a void that never truly filled, but I picked myself up for Emily. She was my world, my reason for living. I worked tirelessly, often taking on extra shifts, making sure she had everything she needed, and honestly, probably a little more than she needed. I didn't want her to feel the absence of her mother any more than she already did, so I spoiled her, perhaps excessively. She was always bright, always charming, and she knew exactly how to wrap me around her little finger. Looking back, that should have been my first clue, shouldn't it? That innate ability to manipulate, to get what she wanted always. Emily grew up, went through school, and was accepted into a decent university. I was so proud. I'd saved diligently for her education, even taking out a second mortgage on our small house to ensure she wouldn't be burdened with student loans. I wanted her to have a fresh start, a clean slate, to pursue her dreams without financial worries hanging over her head. She studied graphic design, a field she seemed passionate about. We'd talk for hours about her projects, her ideas, her future. She always said she'd pay me back, not just financially, but by making me proud, by building a successful life. Those words, they echo in my mind now, twisted and hollow. After graduation, Emily landed a good job at a marketing firm. She moved into her own apartment, a swanky place downtown, and I was thrilled for her independence. We still saw each other regularly, Sunday dinners, holidays, the usual family gatherings. She'd often complain about her salary, how it wasn't enough to keep up with her lifestyle, the expensive clothes, the trendy restaurants, the exotic vacations she frequently took with her friends. I'd gently remind her about budgeting, about living within her means, but she'd just wave it off, saying, "Oh, Dad, you're so old-fashioned. You've got to spend money to make money." I chuckled, thinking it was just youthful exuberance, a phase she'd grow out of. I wish I had pushed harder, questioned more. Then came the business venture. Emily called me one day, bubbling with excitement. She and a couple of friends from university had decided to start their own design agency. They had big plans, revolutionary ideas, and they just needed a little seed money to get started. She explained that they needed an initial investment for office space, equipment, and to hire a small team. She asked me if I could sign a loan for them. She promised it would be a small loan, just enough to get them off the ground, and that they'd pay it back within a year, tops. My heart swelled with pride. My daughter, an entrepreneur. I saw her ambition, her drive, and I wanted to support her in every way possible. I didn't want to be the parent who held their child back. I, foolishly, agreed. We went to the bank together. I remember the loan officer, a stern-faced woman named Ms. Jenkins, asking me several times if I understood the implications of co-signing. She explained that if Emily's business failed, or if she defaulted on the payments, the responsibility would fall squarely on me. I nodded, confident in my daughter's abilities, confident in her word. Emily squeezed my hand, her eyes sparkling, and reassured me, "Don't worry, Dad, you won't have to lift a finger. This is just a formality." I signed the papers. I didn't even read the exact amount. I trusted her, And that, my friends, was my biggest mistake. For the first few months, things seemed to be going well. Emily would tell me about new clients, successful projects, and the glowing reviews they were receiving. She even treated me to a fancy dinner once, saying, "See, Dad, your investment is already paying off." I felt a surge of warmth, a sense of accomplishment, believing I had done a good thing. I saw my daughter thriving, and that was all that mattered to me. Then the calls started. First, from the bank, polite reminders that a payment was overdue. I called Emily, a knot forming in my stomach. She apologized profusely, claiming it was a minor oversight, a mix-up with their accounting software. She assured me she'd take care of it immediately. A few days later, another call, then another. The payments weren't being made. I grew increasingly worried, but Emily always had an excuse. A client hadn't paid, a delay in funds, a temporary cash flow issue. Each time, she promised it would be resolved, and each time, I believed her. She was my daughter, after all. How could I not? The polite reminders turned into stern warnings. The bank started calling me directly, demanding payment. That's when I finally pressed Emily for details. She admitted that the business wasn't doing as well as she'd hoped. They had overspent on marketing, lost a major client, and were struggling to keep afloat. She was stressed, she said, overwhelmed, and she begged me not to tell her friends or her partners, claiming it would ruin her reputation. I felt a pang of sympathy. I told her I would help her figure it out, that we would face this together. I even offered to lend her some money from my savings to tide them over, but she refused, insisting she'd handle it. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Here I was, a single father, nearing retirement, with a significant amount of debt hanging over my head, all because I wanted to support my daughter's dreams. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have kept pouring money into a failing venture? Would you have confronted her more aggressively? Or would you have washed your hands of it entirely? I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts, because at that moment, I felt completely lost. The situation escalated rapidly. The bank's tone grew harsher, their letters more threatening. They started mentioning legal action, repossessions. My once peaceful nights were now filled with anxiety, my days plagued by a constant sense of dread. I tried to talk to Emily again, but she became evasive, angry even. She started avoiding my calls, claiming she was too busy, too stressed. The daughter I knew, the one who always confided in me, seemed to have vanished, replaced by a cold, distant stranger. Finally, I snapped. I drove to her apartment unannounced. She opened the door, her face a mask of annoyance, clearly not expecting me. I walked in, not bothering to be invited, and laid out all the bank statements, the overdue notices, the threats of legal action. I demanded to know the truth. That's when she dropped the bombshell. She admitted that the business wasn't just struggling, it had failed months ago. She hadn't been able to make any payments for a long time. The small loan I had signed for wasn't small at all. It was for $400,000. My blood ran cold. I felt the air leave my lungs. I sank onto her sofa, staring at her, unable to comprehend. She had deliberately misled me, lied to me, and saddled me with a debt that would undoubtedly cost me my home, my retirement, everything I had worked for my entire life. Her explanation was chillingly calm. She said she had been desperate, that she thought she could turn it around, that she didn't want to disappoint me. She even tried to make me feel guilty, saying I wasn't being supportive enough. That's when it truly hit me. This wasn't about a misguided business venture. This was about a complete lack of regard for me, for my sacrifices, for our relationship. She had used me, plain and simple, and then came that infamous dinner, the one where she handed me the envelope, smiling, like she was giving me a gift. She said, "I have a surprise for you." And it wasn't a surprise. It was a confirmation of my worst fears, a final, definitive declaration of her betrayal. Inside that envelope was a demand for payment from the bank, clearly stating that as the co-signer, the full $400,000 was now my responsibility. She just handed it to me, without a hint of remorse, as if it was perfectly normal. I stood up, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and disbelief. I told her, in no uncertain terms, that I was done. I told her I would never forgive her for what she had done, for destroying my trust, for jeopardizing my entire future. She tried to cry, tried to play the victim, but it was too late. The dam had broken. I walked out of her apartment that night and haven't spoken to her since. The aftermath has been a living nightmare. I had to sell my house, the house Sarah and I had built together, the house Emily grew up in. I moved into a tiny, rented apartment, my life savings decimated by the lawyers and the bank. My retirement plans are shattered. I'm working longer hours than ever, trying to claw my way back from this financial abyss. It's been incredibly difficult, emotionally and financially. My friends and family were shocked, some supportive, others judgmental, questioning how I could abandon my own daughter. But they don't understand the depth of the betrayal, the cold calculation behind her actions. Emily, I hear through mutual acquaintances, is still living in her fancy apartment, still traveling, still posting curated images of her perfect life on social media. She's never once reached out, never apologized, never offered to help. It's as if I never existed, as if she simply cut me out of her life once she had what she wanted. It hurts deeply. The loss of my daughter, the one I poured everything into, the one I loved unconditionally, is a wound that may never heal. Sometimes I still wonder if I should have handled it differently, if there was another way. But then I remember that envelope, that calm smile, and the crushing debt, and I know I did what I had to do to protect myself, to survive. So that's my story, a cautionary tale, perhaps, about the blind spots of parental love and the devastating consequences of misplaced trust. If you've ever been in a similar situation, or if this story resonated with you, please like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this, because sometimes just sharing these experiences can be a form of healing. And share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll be reading them. I'll see you all in the next story.